welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm delighted to be welcomed here to the Dirty Salad Club today. And I'm also delighted to be here to help you to start to break some of those pesky, unhealthy technology habits. So what I'm going to do before I get into any introduction or agenda, what I like to do is start with an exercise for a couple of reasons, which I'll share with you in a little bit. But I want you to start by thinking of your most pesky or most getting in the way technology usage habits. So what are the ones that are most negatively impacting your results? So what I'd like you to do is, if you could start to post those into the chat as I'm talking, and I'm going to share a couple of my own that I've spent a lot of time working on to overcome. So some might come to your mind straight away, and if they do, just post them into the chat. But as I'm talking, some of these examples might jog your memory or bring up some thoughts of the ones that are most getting in your way. So the first one for me is that I'd say everybody does this or has done it at some point, and this is a technology multitasking or task switching. So this is where you're focused on one task on your device and you're trying to complete that task, but you become distracted by another device or an application that you have open. So for example, most of us have our email inbox open. 80% of us have our email inbox open in the background at all times. So if you're trying to complete, say, a PowerPoint deck, and you're focusing on that task, your email inbox is open, you're going to get notifications in, and if you go into that email notification, you're brought down that rabbit hole then of investigating that. So that's technology multitasking. And if you do that, it takes you approximately 8 minutes to regain your focus when you go back to your original task. Now, 8 minutes is a conservative view. I've read articles that have said that it's up to 23 minutes to regain your focus onto your previous task. And we are interrupted every 3 to 5 minutes. So now these studies were done before lockdown, before parents were homeschooling. So I think if we took a sample of homeschooling parents, you might find that there are many more interruptions than 3 to 5. But as you can see, that's one where that's really, really hampering your productivity. Another one is multitasking when you're on a Zoom call and you're trying to get through other pieces of work while someone is speaking. Hopefully that's not happening now. If it is, if I could ask you now to just close down any other tabs that are not relevant for this morning and just gift yourself this time of being here and present. But that's something that we're all culprits for. And a last one, before I have a look into the chat, is in the morning time, when you first go and turn off your alarm on your phone, if you use your phone for your alarm, a third of us just take the phone and start going for a mindless scroll before we get up out of bed. So that is, you might start going into your email and replying to email, or you might just go into your social media, and it's unproductive time as well. So if you take that 20 minutes every morning, that adds up to 112 hours across the year. So how could you use that 112 hours more productively, focused on something different? So if you can see, there are pockets of time in our day that we're potentially using, wasting time on a particular technology usage habit it's not serving us. So I'd ask you just to start thinking about those. I'm going to have a look and see, has anybody shared in the chat? So here we go. If I go back to the start, constantly checking messages, spending too much time scrolling on the phone, email hijack, yeah, getting sidetracked so easy when you have different applications open, being disturbed by email, using phone as an excuse for not focusing on something, yeah, Colin constantly checking other channels, Tanya, scrolling on phone when I should be going to sleep, yes, massive one. Colin, not taking time to break between meetings. We are all online all the time with Zoom, Teams, etc. Aisling, allowing notifications to disrupt me. Any notification. Joe, whoops, caught. Orla, on the phone, checking emails, reading news feed as soon as I wake up. Yeah. Colin, first thing in the morning, log on to work rather than getting breakfast. Oh, Colin. Laura, scrolling as soon as I wake up to adjust my eyes to the light before turning on the main light in the room. Very good. So you can see, and one of the reasons I get people to talk about these in the chat is to feel like we're not alone. We're all doing these things, and it's just about, first of all, bringing them into your awareness. So what I'm encouraging people that I work with and that I talk to at the moment is to see if you can develop some kind of a morning routine. And we've probably all read something about developing a morning routine, since this has become more popular in literature as well. I know there's a book called The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma, and Hal Elrod is speaks extensively on the topic and has written on the topic as well, Miracle Mornings. So if any of you are on Instagram, you could follow me, and I'm doing a 28-day challenge to develop a morning routine. So I've put it out there. I've made myself accountable. I'm doing a daily video on how I'm getting on with that. So if anybody wants to follow me, I have my Instagram handle in a while, but it's at Aoife Donovan. If you didn't catch that, it's going to be on a slide in a little bit. So it's just a thought. If we're saying we don't have enough time during the day and we're back to back on Zoom calls and we're connected to technology for so long of the day, if you were willing to get up a little bit earlier, there is a pocket of time there that you could use in a better way. So as part of this, we're going to get into our breakout as part of this exercise. So those few examples, I hope that's gotten your thoughts flowing and brought some of those technology usage habits that are unhealthy or that are getting in your way, brought some of those to the forefront of your mind. We're going to break into breakout groups in a moment, but what I'd like you to do is, within your groups, describe the one technology habit that is your top priority now for breaking. So this is the one that's getting in your way the most. So the one technology habit that's top priority, I'd like you to share that in your group, but as well, why do you need to change it? So why is that important to you to change this? There's two things to discuss in the breakout. What is the one technology usage habit that's top priority for you to change? And two, why do you need to change it? So, and we're going to move into the breakout groups now. We're going to do 6 minutes and then we'll come back and debrief. Are we happy to proceed that we have everyone back, Tanya? Yeah? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, good to go, Aoife.
Great. Okay, so I hope you found that useful, not only to start to bring those habits into your awareness, but to share with others and to hear from others. And it's important to really identify your why as well. And I mentioned that in my own breakout. So if you tell me in the chat then, what's your one priority technology habit that you're now driven to change? So if you focused in on one, hopefully after that. So I hope you can now start to see how you could maybe gain some time back in your day if you were able to get a handle on some of those technology habits, in particular the one that you want to focus on. So I've mentioned the scrolling that we do, the morning scroll, as I call it, the mindless scrolling in the morning. A lot of us do that. And that could be a pocket of time that you might look at using in a different way now, especially if you are looking to get a break from the constant connection. And someone had mentioned in the chat that we're always connected, and that's part of the idea behind Technostress. And I'll share a little bit of that research coming up. But if you do need to get a break from that, that could be a pocket of time that you could use. So I began the session this morning with that exercise for two reasons. So firstly, I wanted to start in an engaging way, and it's to bring everyone into the virtual room with me. to make sure that everybody's present. And that's a pro tip right there for your next Zoom calls. It's a good way to start, do something different, like start with a statistic or a question or something engaging that brings people into the room, especially if you do need to hold engagement for a particular topic. But as well, I wanted to bring your habits into your awareness. So the first step to habit change is awareness, and that's your second reason as to why I started in that way. And that's such an important step, because we use technology so mindlessly today. It can feel like an area of your life that you have little to no control over because it's so mindless rather. So that there's enough things really going on in the world that we don't have any control over, but that doesn't have to be one of them. So because you've joined me here today, and I can see from the chat, I'm presuming that people are feeling like technology usage is an area of your life that you want to get more control over, and that you're ready to create more time in your life so that you can focus on your priorities. So on that, do you ever wonder how some people are exceptional at that they're amazing at staying laser focused on their priorities? So they seem to have some super heroic self-discipline gene that you simply were not born with. They seem to achieve so much, but they have the same resources as you. But today you're going to learn how they do that. And it's not that they have some superbly developed willpower. They apply habit changing techniques to design their environment in a specific way. So I just ask you during the session just to be aware of your inner critic. It's probably having a field day throughout this session. So you might hear such beauties as, that won't work for me, or I'll never be able to change X, Y, or Z. So acknowledge those, and then ask yourself why or why not. Why would that be applicable to me, or why not? So we're going to get into all of the exciting stuff shortly, the habit changing stuff. But I'm just going to share a 90-second piece about myself. So I say 90 seconds just to know, so people know it's not going to go on too long. We all like to know a little bit about the people presenting to us. So this is me and the family. And I was saying to Tanya the other day, when we were doing a little bit of prep for this, that pre-pandemic, I wouldn't have shared a family photo. But I believe that we all need a little bit more social connection, social contact now, and everything can seem a little bit more formal in the virtual world. So it's nice to let people in a little bit into a little window into your life. So that's my husband Barry there on the screen, and our two little girls. So we have Shifra, who's 4, and Eleanor, who's almost 10 months old. So as you can see from the photo, we tend to spend a significant amount of time removing the shouty 4-year-old from the face of the baby. So what's my day job? Well, I'm a coach. I help professionals to reach their most inspiring goals, and I make their dream lives a reality. So I do that through one-to-one coaching, and I've worked with multinationals since 2004, right up to 2019, predominantly for eBay and Vodafone. And in 2019, I decided I didn't want to feel stuck anymore in my career. And I went out on my own and set up on my own. So that's what I help people to do who are feeling stuck and like there must be something better out there for me. And I help them to realize that. So my roles within those organizations were in leadership, learning and development, and coaching. So let me just bring your attention to the neon sign on the screen. If you have an interest in talking to me after the session, then I'd love to chat to you. You can connect over email. That's aoife@donovanlee.world, or connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Aoife Donovan Lee. And my Instagram is @AoifeDonovan. And the reason I share that is because, as I've mentioned, I'm doing this daily challenge. It's a vlog that I post every day just on the challenges and my musings over the 28-day challenge on setting up a morning routine. So if you're interested in that, I'd love if you could follow me. So what's in it for you today? Well, you're going to learn about the term technostress, and you're going to recognize where it shows up for you in your life or the lives of those around you. So I'm going to briefly discuss as well the key learning points from my own research, and how they could help you and or others or your organization. And finally, I've devised a very simple 3-step process for changing your unhealthy technology habits and therefore mitigating technostress. We're hoping to have a Q&A at the end, but that's just if we have the time to do that. So tell me in the chat what comes up for you when you hear the term technostress. For some of you, it might conjure up some very specific examples of you being stressed out by technology, like this guy in the photo. Particularly over the past 11 months or so, that's probably become more intense for you. So the term technostress, would you believe that showed up in the research in 1984? So it probably seems like quite a new term to some of you on the call today, but it was brought up first by a leader in technostress research called Craig Broad. So that really began to emerge when computers began to become an integral part of our working lives. And since then, the term has grown to encompass so much more. So as the body of research expands, with it grows our awareness of the stressors that can lead to technostress. And some of those negative outcomes that are related to technostress fall under the categories of job-related stress, decreased productivity, burnout, work-life family conflict, lower job satisfaction, higher turnover. So some of you are probably nodding along to some of those. I'm going to talk very briefly about the 5 stressors that can cause technostress, and they were made popular in the academic research. There are a number of important academics in technostress research. So if this is an area that's of interest to you, I'd be more than happy to connect after the session, and I can show you some good places to start on that. So the stressors, you just have to think about which one shows up for you as I'm describing them. So first of all, technology overload. This is where we now have access to several different forms of communication technology, and this allows us to receive work-related requests and information from multiple sources simultaneously. This can lead to feelings of communication and information overload because of technology and multitasking. So invasion, this is probably one that's showing up quite a bit for you, especially in virtual working and in lockdown life. So the pervasiveness of technology, this can lead us to feelings of stress by the perception that we're always connected. And this has already been mentioned in the chat. So according to a recent study by the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development, 40% of UK workers check their emails at least 5 times a day on weekends or on days off, and over half mentioned to struggling to switch off from work at least sometimes. Technology uncertainty. Changes to technology may leave us feeling unsettled, like we're having to constantly keep up to date on and familiar with new technology. Insecurity. Some of us may experience job insecurity as a result of the introduction of new technologies and highly skilled rivals. And finally, technology complexity. So technology may make us feel as though our skills are inadequate. We feel a constant pressure to invest time in learning about new technologies that we're working with. So just have a think about which one has resonated for you the most. Which one of these do you believe shows up most for you in your life? For the most part, I normally see that people experience overload and invasion. They're the top 2. So my interest in this topic as a research topic began during my psychology master's about 2 years ago. I conducted my thesis research in technostress with a global organization, and the aim of this was to identify the presence of technology invasion and technology overload and the coping strategies that individuals employed to mitigate those 2 stressors. So I worked with a group of call center support function workers, and they were a group of individuals. They were at different role levels in the areas of project management, learning and development, and quality. So if we take a look at these findings, I'd love you just to have a think about what one shows up for you, and it might be applicable to your organization, and how you might think about these findings in relation to how they might help your organization or things that you might have to change. So my main observations from the research fell under these themes. So management and top-down modeling behavior. Well, what does that mean? Although individual contributors within the sample, they didn't feel an overt pressure from management to allow technology to invade their personal lives, but they did feel an inner obligation to either check work-related emails outside of office hours or to respond within a self-imposed time frame. So this also tells us that there was a presence of the stressor technology invasion. So behavior modeled by management suggested that there is an expectation on them to be contactable and respond to emails outside of office hours. So although managers don't expect employees to conduct work outside of office hours, they were modeling the behavior themselves. And that in turn has an effect on employees. So that's something that you should be mindful if you have a team or if you are a leader within an organization. Your behavior is having an impact on how your direct reports are behaving. Overload. So tasks were deprioritized because of the receipt of new requests via technology. So for example, if someone more senior sent a request to a more junior employee, that takes priority over whatever that employee had on their list to do that day. It's also something just to be aware of if you are in a more senior position in an organization. If you're sending something on, can you send a little an expectation around that? And do you expect that done within a certain time frame, or can it be deprioritized? Participants reported several examples of being distracted because of technology. Invasion showed up. As mentioned, most participants regularly monitored their work phone outside of hours, especially upon hearing an email notification sound. And also in relation to invasion, there were cases of colleagues' lack of understanding of the boundary between work and personal life because of technology. So that's where colleagues were expecting responses outside of working hours. I came across examples as well of individuals contacting fellow colleagues on their personal social media platforms with work requests. Ultimately, the perception amongst participants was that there a clear information and communication technology usage policy had not been defined by their organization. And from having conversations and doing lighter research post this research, that seems to be the case for a lot of organizations. So if there's no clear strategy or policy in place to let employees know what's expected and not expected of them in relation to their usage. So I'd ask you, does your organization have a usage policy? And if not, is there a way that you could introduce this? Now, it doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all blanket approach for the whole organization. It could be done team by team in team charters to help mitigate that, the technostress, and to help employees to understand what's acceptable and unacceptable in terms of their tech usage. Many coping strategies. So within the sample, one of the questions that I asked was, how do you cope with technostress if you're feeling that? And they gave me a plethora of examples of things like I try to do a disconnect day, 1 day a week from tech, or I don't use my phone between the hours of 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. because that's family time. But what I found was that these strategies weren't working so well. And what that came down to was because they really didn't have a clear why or a purpose as to why they were trying to disconnect. And we're going to talk about that now. So before we dive into the 3-step model for habit formation, the models really that I use to teach people about breaking habits are from the research of James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. So many of you have probably already read that book, but if you haven't, I'd definitely recommend it. Clear's put together lots of research on habit formation, and he's packaged together with some great real life examples. So all behavior is driven by the desire to solve a problem. Sometimes the problem is that you want to experience something good, or sometimes it's that you're experiencing pain and you want to relieve it. So a habit is a behavior repeated enough times that it becomes automatic. So to help us, I'm just trying to click forward and it's not moving. There we go. So to help us, we're going to have a look at James Clear's habit loop to help you understand how a habit is formed. So the 4 stages of habit, this 4-step pattern is the backbone of every habit, and your brain runs through these 4 steps in the same order each time: cue, craving, response, and reward. So first there's the cue. The cue trains your brain to initiate a behavior. It's a bit of information that predicts your reward, and it's something that catches your attention. And the best examples of a cue are time and location. So a real life example of this is your phone is a cue. The cue is your phone buzzes with a new message. That's your cue. The craving, that's the motivational force behind any habit. You crave the change in internal state that a habit provides. And in this example with the phone, the craving is that you want to learn the contents of that message. So your response then is the actual habit that you perform. You grab the phone and you read the message. The response delivers a reward, and the reward is the end goal of every habit. At least for a moment, rewards deliver contentment and relief from a craving. So you satisfy your craving to read the message, and grabbing your phone becomes associated with your phone buzzing. So in summary, the cue triggers a craving, which motivates a response, which provides a reward, which satisfies that craving, and that becomes associated with the cue. So after years of mental programming, we automatically slip into these patterns of thinking and acting. So a quick exercise here. I'm going to ask you just to take your negative technology habit that you've decided on, your top priority one, and I'd like you to break it down into those 4 steps. So I have an example here that I can just bring up for you on the screen. So for example, in that real life example that I've given you, your cue was when your phone buzzes. So what's your cue? It could be that waking up in the morning one, when you go for the mindless scroll. Your craving, what are you craving once that buzz happens? What do you want to get from that? In the case of a text, it's you want to see the contents of that message. That's your craving. The response then is to pick up the phone, and your reward is to you see the message. So we'll jump into the 3-step model. The first step is, as part of diagnosis, it's all about bringing your habits into your awareness. So we're going to work on your own strategy today as our next exercise for breaking that habit. Your second step is the design, and that's where you design the strategy that's going to facilitate the elimination of your bad habit. And then the third step is implement. You just start doing it. So there are your 3 steps. So we'll start with the diagnose. So bringing your habits into your awareness and making a plan based on the ones that are causing you the most angst. So we've done that this morning. We started to become aware. And once you're aware of your habits, ask yourself, is this usage bringing me closer to my goal? Or you can also ask those around you, how does your technology usage impact them? That's a scary one. There are some great apps available as well to make you aware of your usage. So I like Siempo, Space App, and Rescue Time. So I'm going to provide any of the resources that I'm talking about when we provide the deck after the session. And then this next step is critical to creating and breaking your habits, and that's identifying your why. Why do you really want to change this habit? If you can get to that real reason and make that your driver for change, you're going to have success. Otherwise, you're going to rely on things like motivation, and that's very much overrated. So I suggest using the 5 whys to get to your real reason for change. So you just keep drilling down 5 times, asking yourself why, until you get to your fundamental reason. as to why you want the change. So we're bringing back Superman. Remember earlier I'd mentioned those people who have extraordinary self-discipline. They've great success in numerous areas of their lives, and you might even be a little bit jealous of that. So disciplined people, they set up their lives in a way that doesn't require heroic self-control. They spend less time in tempting situations, and they design an environment that automates the behaviors that maintain their success. And you can do that too. So in order to learn how to break a habit, we must first just quickly look at how you make a habit. And on the left, you'll see there's the 4 laws of behavior change. So in order to make a habit, it's about making it obvious. So for example, if you're looking to drink more water during your day, make the cue obvious. So it might be 11 o'clock every day, I go to make a cup of tea. So beside the kettle, you have a bottle of water. Make it attractive. So how can you make this, you're trying to make a habit, how can you make it more attractive? So making it very straightforward and easy, having the bottle there already set up for you in the morning. Make it easy and make it satisfying. So if there's a way that you can track your progress as well on your water drinking, that's always a good way to make it satisfying instantly. So a lot of these fitness apps have water trackers included. So that's a water example. Breaking a habit, you invert the 4 laws of behavior change. So make it invisible. Make your cue invisible. Make it unattractive. Make it difficult. And make it unsatisfying. So if we take your example and we start to work through your example now, and I'll put an example of my own up on the screen to help you. So the last one of these sessions that I did was before Christmas, and I had set up an Eventbrite page for the event. And I set it up 2 weeks before the event, and instantly I became obsessed with going into Eventbrite and checking the numbers. So what I realized was that every time I stood up from my desk at home, I just went into this habit of I just pick up my phone and I'd start to go into the Eventbrite app and I'd check the numbers. I was obsessively checking, and it really wasn't good for me. So what I did was I scheduled times during the day to check in and respond to people. So I used the 4 laws of behavior change to break that habit. So make it invisible. So when I stood up from the desk, I just leave the phone on the desk and I used to walk away. The craving, I made it unattractive. So I think about how unproductive that was. It's just wasted time checking in, and it wasn't making me feel very good. So how could I make it, make that unattractive? So the response then, I had to make it difficult. So I just removed the app, make it more difficult for myself to get into Eventbrite. And finally then your reward. So I would remind myself of what I was stopping myself from doing. Was there something more productive that I could be doing in that time when I had those couple of free minutes? So make sure that you're designing your environment in a way that sets you up, so that you're not putting yourself into that tempting situation. So how can you do that? Is it about removing apps? Is it about leaving the phone somewhere so you know you won't go to it at those cued times? So finally, it's just about implementing your strategy and just practicing. So when you don't do it, if you fail at all, rather than berating yourself, just watch that negative self-talk, just acknowledge it and reset. At the next opportunity you have to break your habit, just start again. Identify as someone who behaves in that way. I'm someone who resets the next time. So in summary of the 3-step model, in order to change, we need to start by becoming aware. So we diagnose and we find our why. Then we need to design our strategy. We use the habit loop and the 4 laws of behavior change. And then we just start doing it. So at the beginning of the session, I asked you to think about a technology habit that was stopping you from achieving your results. And now you have that strategy. I'd love to see on a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to breaking this habit? So if you could put it into the chat, I'd love to see what people are saying. How committed are people? You can see our chat here. 7, 8, 7s and 8s. 7s and 8s. Those habits are well ingrained. I understand. 5. Yeah, may need to revisit my why. The why is important. When you're not fulfilling it, or when you continuously are not doing what you said you'd do, yeah, that's really important. So just a final point is that there's also, if we're talking about organizations, there's also a whole organizational cultural context at play here as well when it comes to technology usage. I'd mentioned the information communication technology usage policy, or ICT usage policy, and that's going to continue to influence how and when your team use technology, unless you do something to change that. So employers should make sure that there are systems in place to maximize the benefits of digitalization. The associated risks are what we've already talked about in relation to Technostress. So employers should be really aware of that. And that means that organizations should really develop new strategies and policies and tools to safeguard and support employee well-being in this rapidly changing environment. I know I'm preaching to the choir here because you're all living it in a remote working environment, but I hope I've given you some food for thought on ensuring on how to ensure that these systems are in place to prevent negative outcomes for yourself and your team and your organization in 2021 and beyond. So I'd love you just to take down and post into the chat what your most valuable takeaway was from today. If you could pop it into the chat, I'd appreciate just seeing what you took the most value from. And so just to recap, we brought your unhealthy tech habits into your awareness. We discussed some research findings, the 4 laws of behavior change, the habit loop, the why. Yeah, the why is really important. The 5 whys. Why? Yeah, it's vital. Habit loop. Great, thank you very much. So I've just put up that's my LinkedIn name is Aoife Donovan Lee. If anybody would like to connect, I'd really appreciate that after the session. If you'd like to email me, there's my email and the handle for Instagram as well, if you'd like to give me a follow. We probably have about 2 minutes left for Q&A. Tanya, what do you think?
Yeah, Aoife, thanks so much. That was great. Really, really interesting. I think especially the piece around the why, I think that's really key for people in terms of this. You know, there's a lot of, we know what we should be doing, but we're not doing it. And that why, really, really good that you emphasize that. That's the key point, I think. So thanks so much, Aoife. It was really, really great. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Next month's Dirty Salad Club session will be on the 10th of March and will be hosted by Louisa Bullough. Louisa's business psychologist, and she's going to be talking about the unavoidable risk of change and how to put people first within that. So again, really, really timely subject, the pace of change that so many organizations were facing anyway before the pandemic. And now people's work routines, work schedules, work locations are all changing as well. And the people piece, of course, is critical within that. So join us on the 10th of March for that. We'll stay for a few minutes now. If anybody has time, has any questions for Aoife, we'll certainly stay for a few minutes to take those. So thanks so much, everybody, and we'll see you soon, anybody that has to go.